Tess coming? Does anybody know? Tess is coming?
No, I didn't see them today.
Just so you're aware, I'm recording today's CT, just to use for my own purposes. You will not see this anywhere.
Just make sure it captures all my good angles.
Who
Hey,
are
can I get
you?
the non-Band-Aid side? Should I still I did get a call and my biopsy results are normal.
Yay!
That's
Just
really
got
good.
it. I was like, I'm either gonna be crying in the bathroom missing CT today, or I'll be here fine.
Well, I'm so glad you're here and fine.
Yes.
That's always,
Good to follow up on doctor's appointments. Make sure you're putting you first. It's hard with a teacher and her schedules. Do they numb it first?
Yeah, she like needles.
and then how do they do it? I'm like curious about how the process.
The biopsy?
Yeah.
Yeah, she numbs it with like a syringe, whatever. And then just, I don't really know. I think she just has like this little teeny tiny razor and just like scoops out a little piece,
That's
like
interesting.
a scoop,
And then they just run tests on it, I
and then
guess.
sends it to a lab.
Nice.
We are going to we're not going to do the community jar thing. I know you guys are dying to do that. Since today is going to be supposed to be a shorter CT, so we're finishing up the summative. And then we're going to dive into, we're going to dive into our data. So I was just sharing, I'm recording CT just for my own purposes. You will not see this anywhere. It's a camera perspective.
Oh my.
And I was saying, we're not doing the community builder because today is supposed to be a short CT to really just finish up 5 through 8.
I was like,
No, she had to go to coach's CT.
okay. I know, simply.
So we'll start with and then Tess, did you have a chance? We were talking about something at the end of
I
this,
put
right?
comments.
Okay.
Just to reword, because I just didn't really like the way that stuff was worded. Also we did not finish like the fill in the blank thing. Did we decide if we were gonna delete that? Like, Liz, how we have the
Yeah, I mean, I
number
don't
7?
think.
Number 7, just take all of this out.
Are we doing any of that question?
Yeah, we're doing the question, right?
Just describing.
This you're talking about, right?
That taking out. I think a word bank would be a scaffold.
So I thought we said take this part out and just put it in the comments. So and just leave this.
So we're just asking them how are chemical equations used to describe a chemical reaction and giving them a word bank as a scaffold.
Yeah.
And then I said for C and D, in the reactants, how many atoms are present for each element? I still just don't know how to phrase that.
I mean, maybe if we put it.
I mean, it's
in more of a table form.
It's exactly how it's worded on the worksheet,
Yeah.
and I plan to go through it, at least one example together on the worksheet.
The way it is now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This was copied
Okay.
and pasted.
But it is confusing because, like, in the explain on the worksheet, it's in a table form, and then later in the extend on the worksheet, it's like this.
Yeah.
So they are seeing it this way.
Maybe
But I was wishing when I was using the lesson with them, I was like, ugh, this would have been better if we kept it as a table so that they could do like reactants and then products.
So do we want to change that as a question? Sounds like yes. Change this into a table.
Similar to the
Yeah, I
the
mean,
first table that Stephanie made for lesson 8. Is that
Yeah,
the
like
kind of
what it
table?
is in the explain on the lesson versus what it is in the extend, which is like this.
Okay, I kinda like the table idea too.
So it sounds like a table. So I will take my hand off. Who's about to make the
I can
table?
do it.
See like 3 clickers on there at once. Are you okay with us moving on to criterion D while you guys mess around with the table, or you want us to wait?
That one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll wait.
We can move on.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought you were looking at a picture of something.
Looking at me.
Don't let it pee.
So I put her in the little bag to have a little barrier between me and your peepees. You think it were to get
Yeah.
Liz.
Well, honey,
And
you
with
think you're
that
the
one shirt.
necklace.
you have on there?
That's one sweater.
Got one really long fingernail. Don't look at me like that. Don't look at me like that.
Criterion D. This is reflecting on the impacts of science.
I think the levels 1 and 2 are good.
3 through 8 maybe are a little. Is there anything we can pull from one of the formatives that we don't already have? Because this looks like a lot from last year, right?
Yeah, it's just the same thing this year.
That looks like an extend, sort of, like similar to the tombstone extend a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that would be 7, 8, and then we need to find 3, 4, 5, 6, or just do a 3 through 6. What are your thoughts? How can we change this? I don't think it's a 3 through 8.
What did we do on lesson 6? That was some profound stuff.
Yeah, structure of narrative.
So all of that's before.
We said 6 or 7. I was
Is this a
thinking for
different-
something
That
for
criterion? I'd say it's a 7, 8 with how much writing they have to do. Explaining.
Yeah, so I was thinking that this would be a 7, 8, and then maybe finding another 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay. I like that idea.
But I'm trying to figure out where to pull in 3, 4, 5, 6 from. I was thinking of something from lesson 7.
She was holding him
That's
so he was
profound.
like facing me because I was sitting on the floor, and he,
The-
she was just like rubbing his back. 'Cause he looked at me.
Model making.
And so all of a sudden,
Yes.
he's like, wide-eyed, and all of a sudden he just goes,
Modeling compounds.
and just comes out. Like full
I'm trying to think how
head
would
roll.
So one of the extend question talks about, many of you chose the oxygen, talking about why they needed to breathe. Do we wanna pick one of those and then how that's not 5, 6, 7?
That's kind of 4. If they choose oxygen, then they're gonna explain 3 reasons.
So that
why.
could be a 3, 4.
Or we could ask
That
something
is-
about,
I'm just saying that's too similar to number 4. Cause like if they were to choose.
Oh.
have we talked about chemical bonds yet? Holding a molecule together in the summative?
Well, I think this specific criterion though is really only focused on lesson 5.
Oh, okay.
Cause lesson 5 isn't covered in criterion A. At all, I don't think.
Yeah, cause this looks like 6, 7, 8
Yeah.
stuff. Alright, let me open 5.
I was like, 7, 8. 5 it is.
how is the periodic table, or how are elements organized and categorized? I don't know.
But
I'm
it's
just,
impacts of science, so like it affecting the world.
Hmm.
Know what I mean?
I mean, we did ask, a little bit about elements within greenhouse gases in the lesson.
Mhm. You're looking at like number 8 and then explain.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we don't.
I mean, that would be a
7
little
and
bit
8.
higher, that would definitely be higher level than levels 1, 2.
Mhm.
Like, that could be a 3, 4, like, list
The greenhouse gases.
common greenhouse gas, yeah, just
Mhm.
what it is in the lesson, list common greenhouse gases, which elements.
Existing greenhouse gases. No, I haven't been telling you information. Maybe it's working.
Or something a little bit to make it a little more criterion D-ish, maybe something like,
I'm gonna post
I need to
it,
open the
post it,
actual test.
paste it from the lesson and then we can change the word. But that is at least, that's a 3, 4.
yeah,
Do we need to change that one to 5 through 8, number 4, since it's so in depth?
yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. I'm convinced I still have the slowest computer. Even though they keep that same.
I can't use Google Chrome on my work laptop. It won't load like ever.
So maybe if we kind of turn that into a table too.
Hint, write out the chemical formulas to get the elements.
Yeah,
See,
we could have them like,
but
List on the left and then explain on the right.
List, common name, chemical formula, and because writing the chemical formula will help them see the elements. Because I bet you a lot of them, if we just keep it as this, will just list the greenhouse gases and then be like, how am I supposed to know what elements are in it?
yeah, I mean, I feel like we would
Oh,
have to
okay.
give them the chemical formula.
I'm sorry?
We have to give them the chemical formula.
Depending
I
on
think
what
the
it
only one they
is.
know is CO2.
And water.
Maybe,
And salt.
see, but
But we're not, we've never, no.
I've been talking about salt a lot.
but as a greenhouse gas.
Oh, greenhouse gas. I'm sorry, guys.
Tell me.
Yeah, we haven't,
I was like,
we haven't made
I
any
really
comments
thought
about like
salt was a
memorizing
greenhouse.
formulas,
It
just
was a
knowing
gas.
that's what they are, so
Yeah.
like.
But we could, I mean,
the only ones
Yeah.
we like
Ozone, I
really
know.
had them like know though was like carbon dioxide. Like I don't want to grade my kids on knowing
Yeah.
greenhouse gases and
Right.
chemical formulas.
So
You know?
can we,
right. I was thinking of a way to make it a little more criterion D-ish, like why are common elements an important part of greenhouse gases or something? Like,
Maybe we can say like give a bunch of examples and certain see, but like why does that matter?
right.
I guess
Well, they have to tell us
it's just.
why are common elements,
But what would the answer be?
because
I would just say
hydrogen
they
and
have-
oxygen are very common elements and they make water vapor, which is a greenhouse gas, or carbon and oxygen, like all these elements that we've talked about that are like the most common are also parts of greenhouse gases.
And they go off to bonds.
I just
with-
feel like we haven't had
But
any
why
like
didn't they even know
emphasis
that?
on that.
Yeah, that's true. We
That's
haven't-
true.
And like, I wanna test them on stuff they'd like practice.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay, we can scrap the greenhouse gas idea.
so
it's a better
scrap
idea
this,
than anything I've come up with, which is nothing. So
so are we saying keep this up here that we have?
As an idea.
let's see what standards we
I was thinking about, how about using the nature of science thing for your
Where?
level? That's pretty broad.
When have we talked about the nature of science? When have we talked about the nature of science?
We
Which
scrapped
lab?
it this year.
Which lesson? So we're trying to pull from lesson 5?
I'll get you up on that at some point.
It's just like, what? I was like, go.
We talked about it a little bit, but we haven't talked about it in a really long time. There's
So we're
some
trying to
small
pull
thing.
something from lesson 5.
What if we give them the greenhouse gases and the chemical formulas and then just say what common elements are part of all these greenhouse gases and.
But I don't want them
About
to
those
think like
elements?
hydrogen's bad. You know what I mean? I don't want them to be like, oh, I don't know.
Did they really? I don't know. I'm just trying to think.
Liz, do I look on the Science 6 standards benchmarks indicators or just Science 6 standards? And the six?
Benchmark indicators is just more detailed.
Also not really.
So you guys are thinking that this 3-4 question is not 3-4 enough, or we need to make it more in depth?
I think it's,
Because you guys, we said yes, and then we went into a chart, and then we went into something else. This is pulled directly from 5. We were saying we were just gonna reword it, and then we went into the chart.
I mean, going back to the idea of like not wanting to assess them on greenhouse gases, I do feel like this whole lesson is about common elements, and if we're talking about greenhouse gases in terms of being made of common elements in the lesson, then we can assess them on that.
That's why I was saying,
But I wouldn't want like them coming up with a list of greenhouse gases would
Like,
be
so
worth
if
points.
we
Or
give,
coming up with
what
like a
if
chemical
we
formula.
what if we just left it more open-ended, like I just had it in my brain and I lost it. Like what are some common elements that are important for greenhouse gases? And then as a scaffold you could give them some of the chemical formulas.
and then you could also, as another scaffold, if they really need it, list.
that's why I was confused, because this question comes directly from our formative, right? But we're saying we don't wanna assess them on it because, is that what we're talking about right now? I'm confused.
Rude.
I
You
think
don't-
it's just, yeah, like what exactly we're assessing them on. Are we assessing them on like their content knowledge of greenhouse gases, or are we assessing on being able to like apply common elements?
Okay.
That's why I was wondering, if we give them the greenhouse gas and the formula, we're not testing them on it, we're testing their ability to recognize what's in those.
Yeah. But then I also feel like that's kind of a low level though.
That's really
That's,
easy.
yeah,
Yeah,
If
that's
we
why
give
I'm like
them-
iffy
That's
about
why
it,
I'm,
because
like,
if you give it to
torn.
them, it's like way too easy.
But that could be the scaffold, right? Couldn't we have it for those students who, that is a challenge, because we're trying to assess them on them being able to do that next step, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So if we give it to all of our students, some, not all classes would need that scaffold.
Yeah, like I feel like my AA students wouldn't need it as much, but my gen ed definitely would. My AA was
And this is another one I would want to kind of see if I get those questions. It's like during the test, like what are you asking here? If I get that question, then I would give them the chart with it on there.
Will be, okay, so.
I'm thinking in the comment section, that chart you were talking about, Abby, just put it on the side. And then just leaving this. You can't do what?
You can't put a chart in the comment section.
Why?
It doesn't copy over,
A chart?
like a table, you
Table?
can't put a table on the comments.
Oh.
You have to
I
just
can
put it on
always
like,
make a new document and
I
then.
mean, just put it on like a third page or whatever.
Oh, okay.
I mean, or as a scaffold, you just put in parentheses what we have there. Like in parentheses, it could say, think of as many greenhouse gases as you can and which elements exist. I mean, they did that in the lesson. They should be able to answer that question if they
Yeah,
did
that's
it in the
why we,
lesson.
like,
And I
want
explicitly went over.
them to try it at least, even if my low level classes. I think it'll be a challenge, but it's a 3-4 question, and we're doing it in the formative.
I mean,
What are you thinking they might,
what are we trying to see that we know?
that
What are the
these common elements that we've been talking about are part of, are important components of greenhouse gases too,
Why though?
because greenhouse gases are important. I mean, just this whole idea of they're important for living things on Earth, and greenhouse gases are important for living things on Earth.
So are we okay with leaving it like this? What are you looking at, Matt? What you thinking?
I mean, I would like take all the lines out and everything and then just add, like add all that as a comment, as a scaffold.
And just leave the first part, right?
Yeah.
I think if we're gonna do that, I think there needs to be another part that's like everything you just said. Why is it important that you know it?
Or why are greenhouse gases important for, that's not a.
Then we're assessing,
Something else.
other content.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. Like, how does me knowing that oxygen is in a greenhouse gas help me?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle. 'cause
What do
I
you
see,
guys
like,
want? What do you want kids to know about greenhouse gases?
Well, it's not really greenhouse gas. I mean, well, okay. It's
It's
not
the
really
elements.
greenhouse gases. It's, we want them to know
Recognize
these
that common
Elements.
like the abundance of these common elements. And so greenhouse gases are a place where a lot of them exist. Like oxygen is part of different greenhouse gases, hydrogen, carbon, like these are 3 of the most common elements on Earth, and so they make up several greenhouse gases. I don't know, I mean, I'm definitely open to something else being a 3-4, if we can think of it.
And it has to be from lesson 5.
I think we should stick
We
to
wanna-
lesson 5 content with this criterion, yeah.
Because we have the other explain, we have the extend on there.
Like 4 people.
Should we ask if they can give us the most common elements? But then they're just memorized, that's just
Yeah.
football, that's not good. Ignore
What do you
me.
want me to
Date the
text you
reason
or
which
something?
science
It's all gonna take.
science to solve a specific problem or issue, interaction with
It'll
the
move,
factor,
there's no question.
scientific language to communicate efficiency.
Do we want
Yeah, I also
to
feel like-
ask the engaged question again? As a way to kind of refer back?
What are water and carbon dioxide made of?
Hmm,
Or the second one?
Either one.
I mean,
We'll
cause either
try to
way,
pull
like, if you
something
give
from
them that, like, if you give them the chemical formulas for greenhouse gases, they're just identifying, like, H2O is hydrogen and oxygen. You know what I mean?
I don't think I would.
But I don't know how to make that too accessible to a sped student without that. Cause they just don't have
Without
it memorized,
memorizing
cause they haven't
greenhouse
needed to.
gases, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I guess that's more my issue, like, I think for AA, that would be better.
I'm trying not to just think of my AA, but I get what you're saying.
I know, but
I get-
yeah, I
get
don't know
what
how
you're
to
saying.
scaffold this without just giving them.
Right.
What if we
Something
More
that they
had
than
don't
like
that
need
makes
to
it really low.
a little word bank with some common greenhouse gases and the formulas and be like, these are greenhouse gases that exist, they involve a lot of common elements.
That's still.
It's still them just looking at words and pulling out.
Yeah. Like, that's my biggest issue, it's not the question, it's I don't know how to scaffold it without making it lower level.
It's a toughie.
Why, I was editing the other stuff when you guys were initially talking about this, why did we change this from levels 3.8 to 5.8?
I did, we don't have to put it there, we can just leave it as.
Was there like something specific that we
No.
didn't think was?
Just making it shorter. So it sounds like, Take
Just
out-
leave it 3
yeah.
to 8.
it works.
Just leave it as is.
Yep.
Maybe we're just trying to do too much.
Mm-hmm.
Cause like the where is your, even them like, cause A and B are definitely lower level. Just identifying a common element and where is your element commonly found.
Yeah.
So I feel like we could pull it off as being,
Can we change that to what
yeah.
locations is
Mhm.
your element?
Like,
Like
I might
which of
even
the
put
4
like,
locations?
I might even
Nine.
put like surface,
Name
atmosphere,
them.
water, and be like circle all that apply
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
Very
Like
nice.
that? Is
Yeah.
that what you're looking for, Tess?
Which of the 4 locations?
And in scaffold, you could remind them that it was atmosphere, water.
Yeah, we would give it to them
Is
and
that
they can
okay?
circle, yeah.
See, sometimes they just get warm and you're like, are you just, is that your body heat or is that pee?
Sounds like it's like.
Please be fine.
calm down.
That's a happy sound. That means he's happy.
Really?
He's squeaking?
And explain 3 reasons.
Like a purr.
it's important.
She's celebrating that we figured it out.
Yay!
She's like, if I could talk, I would have told you that.
Like, that's what I was trying to say.
She's like, nobody listened to my contributions.
It's 5 to 8, no! Greenhouse, no!
She looks so nice and warm and cozy. Does that have a little armhole for her?
Oh my gosh.
No, it's just,
Oh,
that'd
okay.
be hilarious. They do have some outfits though.
Do you wanna just go from the top again, to give it one more look over, because it's
Sure.
been a
From the
2-day
top.
process?
So this iron, we're saying that's like another option.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People didn't want to do all that math.
Yeah, okay.
All
Right.
that math.
I can't do
Well,
all
I mean,
that.
I'll definitely give his calculator.
I've been having students be like, you tell me what it is. You tell me.
I've made it very clear in my classes that I can't do math, so I'll just like,
Yeah.
I just don't do
I
it.
just shout out, I'm like,
You guys
you all
tell
know
me.
I can't do it in my head, so somebody do it.
Yeah, just do it, what am I thinking? This, uh-huh. They're like, no, that's wrong, oh, yeah, you're right.
So right. I'm thinking it looks alright.
Does that table look okay for, oh, sorry,
Which one?
for that one, does that table look okay? Is that what you guys were thinking?
And then for number 4, levels 5, 6, the first page, for that little O, elemental square for oxygen, would we be allowed to switch it out if we need to, instead of having our students do O if we wanna do, I don't know, like lead or something?
Well,
They wouldn't know molecule.
Oh, molecule,
Yeah.
my bad.
That's the only reason.
I just think.
Oh, I know. Do we want like a detailed model of an oxygen atom? Or do we want just like that it's one thing?
oh, I was thinking they would do like protons, neutrons, electrons.
Yeah.
For the atom.
So maybe do oxygen atom include protons, neutrons, electrons? Because I know a lot of my kids,
Yeah.
that wasn't clear to them last year.
Yeah.
I remember this question.
I think I'll exclusively state that. For the atom, we want the protons, neutrons, and electrons in the molecule. We're just looking how they,
For a simple drawing.
yeah, simple drawing like what we made in with our marshmallows. I'm on with you. I like it. I'm.
Good? Good? Alright, take one, pass it we're gonna move into data, dialogue, conversation. I'm gonna give you just, probably like 3 or 4 minutes just to look at each page. At the top of each page, it has, the groups, and then it has, the standard at the bottom, and then the pass rate. So I'll give you a few minutes to kind of just look at it, mark it up, and then I will jump in.
And this is e-cart?
Weather e-card,
Okay.
post-test data, yes.
Is this percent of questions correct? Wait, I don't get it.
The front? That's what
So
I was
the-
assuming.
These are all A and gen ed and like all scientific and special.
So the first page is, the pre-assessment data. The second page is all students,
But what do the numbers mean?
the percentage that they got it correct.
So on question 1, 85% of students got it correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And then if you look at like that first page where it says all students, those 2 categories are broken down by 6.3, 6.6. And then the force and motion, those 2 are separate, and that's why the percentage is different at the top.
Why are all of these different?
Because the,
Oh,
One is
honors, I
for-
see. It was under the staple.
Oh, thank you. I was wondering too. I didn't see it up there. Okay.
Yeah, the first one's all kids, and then it gets broken down by gen ed team.
Like
Honors.
these numbers, is this like question number 1, question
Uh-huh.
number 2? Oh.
yeah. So as you're looking at it, if you have questions, just shout it out, because this is a different way of us looking at data. It's called Tableau or Tableau or something.
Definitely like this better than the sandbox.
Yes. Yeah. It's a little bit more.
Which we.
So kind of the first question that we're going to discuss is kind of overall looking at all students. And then looking at, and then we'll kind of go through the subcategories. Just kind of shout out what you know, and then I'm just gonna write down some notes in terms of what you noticed about the question numbers. And then the last page actually has the descriptor, kind of the description. They don't exactly merge together because they don't have the questions like they used to last year, where you could like click on it and then it'll go right to the standard. So if you look at the first page, it says 6.3 for all students. Is there anything that, any one of the questions that?
Yeah, 9 and 14.
Because
Yeah.
9
Question.
was 51%, right?
Yeah. That was, so do we wanna, or, yeah, I mean, I have the question in front of me. Do we wanna talk about that question in detail, or are we just kind of looking at general trends right now? This was the question of students at a mountain, A is at the top, or students hiking up a mountain, A is at the top, D is at the bottom, which location is the most air pressure?
And so why do we think students struggle with that one? Is that what you were asking?
They all either choose A or D.
A or D?
Every
It's
single
just the
time.
wording, it's
Yeah.
because it's like,
Well,
Can
we
you- can
changed
you
it
read-
from highest pressure to most pressure because of that. Because highest, they were like, whoop, highest. And I think that one, they just do it faster than they're thinking. Like it's so easy that they're like, oh, I know that. And then they don't take the second to be like, wait a minute.
Because whenever I talk about it with them, it's like, well, where's the most air? And they know the most air is at the bottom, and so we say, okay, if it's the most air, where's the most air pressure? And then they know that it's also at the bottom. So it's just,
What could we do to address that question within H2O? I'm jumping around, so forgive me. Now that we know it's kind of a wording and we changed it on the test already, is there something else, another way we can approach that question?
well, I mean, we could change the question again. I know we should probably be like working on
Maybe,
our instruction, but it could be like, which
that question
location has
is-
the most air and air pressure?
yeah.
Would that eliminate like?
but the question's gonna come up again in a post-test, right? So
Yeah.
what can we do so maybe change a question on our formative? Or make a formative, sorry.
What about the graphic itself? Maybe it's too, you know. I mean, if they're only answering the sea level.
It is
A
a
and B,
bad graphic
maybe-
because as tall as those trees are,
Right.
that mountain is
Maybe just
not
make it
high
bigger
enough
or-
to be
yeah.
significant
I don't
difference.
know.
That's definitely what they were thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
definitely.
if you.
They're like,
if
those
they're
trees are
only
too tall.
answering A and D, that could be.
I mean, I think for sure if we had a picture that was like the whole atmosphere leading into outer space, like I feel like then they would get it. Because they definitely know the air gets thinner and thinner as you get higher up.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we said like if we said as altitude increases, air pressure increases or decreases or stay the same, like I think a lot of them would get it.
Maybe. I think some of them still don't even know what increase and decrease mean.
Up or down? Does air pressure?
But then-
up or down?
Then if we say does it, like, then that, because that's kind of what it was like before. Because then they think up versus air pressure going up. That would made it confusing because this used to be highest, and so we thought they were thinking like high up.
I think it might have an effect, it's like, you're saying like the graphic itself wasn't very good, in fact, to have a picture of an actual mountain, like something that they don't have to connect a
Yeah.
abstract concept with an abstract concept to something that's actually, it'll like put them, because that's why we present it, and.
Chippy?
Yep.
Yeah.
Did it get on
A
you?
little bit.
Can you copy and paste that question into the notes? So I'm wondering if it would be helpful if during one of the CTs, we create some sort of formative for that question, and maybe you guys could try it out and fit. I mean, is that
Should
fit?
we
Yeah,
throw in
fit,
sea level?
and then we can see if it was
Because I was with
helpful.
him when we were teaching this, and I know we talked about sea levels a lot, like being close and then going up. So maybe, I don't know,
Like if you
I feel like
added
I'm
just
not
a
really
text
good.
box that said sea level.
something like that.
But I think, I mean, if we did something like this in fit, would we want to just give them this and see what happens? Or would we want to maybe like break it down step by step how you would figure this out?
So I think it's whatever we come up with. So my question was, do we wanna create something during one of the CT meetings? And then you guys could use it during fit to address that question. So, and then I guess whenever one of the CTs, we can decide how in-depth, is that what you're asking? How in-depth we
Yeah,
want
cause ultimately we
the-
wanna use it with all our kids, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I
just
want
like
to see.
practicing it with our fit.
Yeah,
Oh, I forgot, I didn't do the whole question, I just did the picture.
Cause we talked about changing the question, we talked about teaching the graphic,
Snag it?
we also
The
talked
best
about
thing ever.
picking a different picture, teaching the concepts in the question, using real life visuals, and yeah, that's all I got so far.
Yeah, I agree with, look at the graphic, I mean, that doesn't give any point of reference to, yeah, just like use a regular photo, or, surely they pick up on that a little
Or
bit
even
more
like
than that.
I think a photo would be best, even from a drawing.
Yes, I agree.
Because whenever we talked about this in Dublin, we always presented like a photograph of a mountain, something like a guy at the top of the mountain, or,
Right.
and they can connect that. Or
With an oxygen tank.
You know, like that, so.
And it sounds like in all of our classes, not just fit, right, Liz? That's what you were saying?
Yeah.
So are you guys okay with, during one of the CTs, coming up with developing a new formative that addresses this question? And then I'll just copy and paste some of the things that we talked about. Because this one was 51% and that was question 9. We good with that one? I mean, not good, but sound like we have a plan. And then the next question that was low was number 14.
Liz, 9 out of 51. Oh, you're, the 54 is 4. Never mind, ignore me.
So I was shocked when I saw how many of my AA kids got this question wrong. And I talked to them and I was like, guys, this like hurts my heart. You need to tell me why you got this question wrong. And there were 2 reasons. Number 1, so the full question says, based on the weather map above, which of the following is a reasonable temperature forecast for Texas after the front moves? Some of them said they were like, well, I knew that it was a cold front and it would bring colder temperature, but I thought it meant like after it's gone and then it gets warmer again. And then the other reason was it's black and white and they couldn't remember if it was a cold front or warm front because in the lesson we use blue and red. Like all of them, it was one of those reasons.
I do feel like we didn't emphasize as much this year the shape of it
Yes,
as we
because
have in the past.
yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we can change the wording to
When the front hits.
Well, to address that, like one thing that I had done, cause I figured that there would be like an issue with latching on to just one aspect of it to remember it, is you present it with the blue and the red, but when they were making it on the map, I just had them use pencils. So they got used to just doing it as the shapes,
Yeah,
so they could see it in both ways, and
Practice.
and I had them use color every single time.
Oh,
So
What was
maybe if we
the-
said something like that, or like when the front reaches Texas.
Yeah, and then also the way you teach it for me, when I was with his kids, I constantly reminded them, cold front, it's cold air, think icicles moving.
Yeah, we say that
I mean,
too.
we did that too, but
Darn it. I was hoping, like half suns.
they still,
More fronts.
What was the other answer that you said is a 54%? How did it break down? Was it even, or was it like, did they just go with 70 or something?
yeah, they went with like 70 or 75.
I think it'd be. I don't know what I'm thinking. I don't think it would like be giving away any information if we said anything about it moving towards Texas, because like it's not like there's any other cities and data on that map that they would like need to differentiate between. Like clearly we're talking about the temperature of Texas.
And they all knew it was going that way. That's not even something I feel like we need to assess. Like they all know the direction it's going. Because are you suggesting that we put something?
Just be like,
Yeah.
when the front reaches Texas, what
Yeah.
is in
Oh,
When it
that's
gets
another way to
here.
put it. I said when it hits, but when it reaches Texas means.
So what could we do for this one? Find another weather map, pick another area,
I don't think the problem lies with them.
No, I'm talking about how can we come up with another way to kind of spiral back for this one I was thinking of.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if I was going
Just pick a different,
to
just pick a different area in the United
review
States.
this concept with them, I would just, yeah, give them maybe a weather map that's all black and white with some fronts going towards different cities and have them describe what's gonna happen to temperature in each of those cities.
Maybe instead of multiple choice, maybe short answer.
Yeah,
Also, why can't we just get a color map since it's online?
but I think just because we have to keep it the same for the end of year post.
True.
Right, were there any other questions that stood out to you guys? I know number 11 and number 12 were at 67 and 68%. Those are like barely.
Are we trying to get 70 for each question? Is that what the minimum goal was? Or what was the minimum we were looking for each?
I think we.
I wanna say
want-
they run these at 60%.
Yeah.
60? Okay.
For number 11, the wording of the options, like, have a direct effect on global temperature. I think so many of my kids are like, they're not exactly the same. If it was a direct effect, it would be exactly the same line.
It just has an effect.
Yeah.
Are you able to put that one in there, Liz? Sorry.
So,
Or they had no idea what
So
direct
it's
effect
wording.
meant.
influence? Okay, yeah.
Say what you said again, I'm sorry.
Because it said direct effect. I think a lot of kids were like, well, if it was a direct effect, it would move in the exact same way, not all squiggly. I mean, they still should have been able to use process of elimination. Also, a lot of them had a hard time determining if global temperature was increasing or decreasing. I think I had gone over this, maybe it's the point, and I was like, look at the beginning, look at the end. Overall, like over time it increases.
In the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. From beginning to end. It's gone all wonky.
And then, so one of the, I know I also said, question number 12, but one of the things that Geneva wanted me to point out is that if you look on the first page, these three descriptors at the bottom are, ones that 8th grade directly impact 8th grade. So are there ways that, I think right now we just have two questions, right, that kind of stand out, and stop me if I'm wrong. Question 9 and question 14. On the second page at the bottom, it says related to 8th grade SOL impact items. Are there ways that we can add those in there also as a way to kind of help support these students as they're, I know they have 2 years before they get to 8th grade.
Planting seeds?
Yeah. Is that something that we can come
I
up with,
mean,
like, with the questions 9 and 14 that?
Well, I'm just thinking about, I was thinking about a way to spiral the concept of convection with like the H2O unit.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking there's gonna be a lesson on like the density of water, but I don't know if that would really confuse them.
And it's hard because these don't have like the direct,
Well-
I wanted to find like the standard.
Well, the only ones I see, like the first two that are integrated pretty heavily into the 7th grade. Correct?
That's true.
The last one, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
there's also gonna be a lesson about thermal energy in the H2O.
And then our last unit is energy. Okay.
So there might be ways that we can kind of address these three in H2O.
And in the energy unit, when we learn about energy resources and talk about like wind energy, we could bring up convection currents again, that.
So, probably not next CT, or would you guys rather just get this over with? So my question now is, we're going to come up with a formative of sorts for questions 9 and 14. Do we also wanna address these three at the end, or do you wanna wait until it comes up and I'll just kind of put it on the agenda so we don't forget about it?
Yeah, I feel like
As a
we
way-
need to like keep it on our radar and like
When
keep,
it,
every time we're planning a lesson, be like, okay, is there any way to like link this concept in?
got it, that works.
And that's more like just in a general sense of, editing, like writing the questions. Obviously, I'm coming from a specific viewpoint here from self-contained class, but I think it would affect everybody's. To really mindfully try to make the questions as brief as possible. Like, take out as much extraneous information as I have students that like some of these questions, by the time I'm finished reading it, they don't remember how it started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, so like, try to keep them as short and
Like the cloud formation
directly
one.
to the point as possible.
Yeah, just to like push back on, I totally agree with what you're saying. When we were looking at, practice
Grade.
SOL,
Mhm.
those questions are so wordy.
Yeah,
So,
building stamina. they talk
yeah,
about.
And
that's the only thing.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
actually,
maybe if
they're
we
not gonna-
did,
build the stamina taking these tests. I mean, it's integrated into some of the
Right.
students I have, but I can see that, yeah.
I mean, maybe if we like, make our e-cert questions like what you're saying, but then when we're like practicing like the occasional e-cert question for like a warm-up or whatever,
Well, that I
which
can
we
see,
should probably be
that's-
doing
that-
more often, making those more wordy to like, what you were saying, build their stamina.
I think that would be good. 'Cause I
It's
could actually,
ridiculous how
like-
wordy they are.
like integrating that skill.
Yeah. I'm thinking of like next year doing e-cart questions like every day.
We really should be doing them more often.
Yeah.
It's just like totally different.
We
ballpark,
should
like-
be, we just, I mean, this is, yeah, next
It's
year, but
different,
like,
yeah.
maybe, like, might be a lot of work, but maybe instead of like our typical
whenever I
e-cart questions that
think
we've
of
used
things
and pulling
that I
from
wanna
e-cart,
change
maybe
about my
use
teaching, I'm
release
like,
SOL
here's
questions
this.
instead for our pre and post
Mhm.
assessments.
Yeah. I think at this point, we can pretty much create what we want. I think the
Should be
big
better.
thing, just looking at this data, if you look at the first page, the pre-test, now with the post-test, we've
Yeah.
made tremendous
Yeah.
gains, which is good.
Yeah.
I think one of the items that Geneva wanted us just to be mindful of, these are the 3 areas that directly impact 8th grade. And with, what is the people that come in to look at the data? Project Momentum, they just wanna know how we're gonna support them.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to make sure that with our post-test, that we have a plan going forward, just so we're going through that cycle. And I think this data is much more user-friendly.
Yes.
Yes.
And please keep this, just keep it for your records. We'll do the same thing, we're a cycle team, so. I'm not gonna ask you to bring this to every CT, but it's just good when we do, H2O. Not gonna print out for new one, just use it again. We good?
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned before 2:00.
Well, my eligibility is in 7 minutes, so, thanks.